Phoenix, Arizona, June 2006. A real estate agent named Jennifer just closed her 23rd deal that month. 23. She was making $40,000 a month. Her BMW was paid off, her kids were in private school, and she had just bought her third investment property. 2 years later, she was serving coffee at Starbucks. What happened? She believed the lie, the biggest lie in American finance, the lie that's about to destroy another generation, the lie that real estate always goes up, that a house is always an asset, that home ownership is always wealth. But here's what they don't tell you. In stage 6 of a debt collapse, real estate doesn't just stop being an asset. It becomes a trap, a financial anchor that drowns you while everyone else escapes. And we're entering stage 6 right now. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you the pattern that repeats in every liquidity crisis. I'm going to show you what happened to the people who bought in 2006 and what's about to happen to the people buying today. And at the end, you'll understand why the smartest money is running away from real estate while the masses are being told to buy. Stay until the end. Your next 10 years depend on it. You need to understand something fundamental. Real estate isn't wealth. Real estate is a leveraged bet on the continuation of the current system. It's a bet that property taxes stay payable, that maintenance costs stay manageable, that buyers exist when you need to sell, that banks keep lending, that the economy keeps growing. And when any of those conditions break, your asset becomes a liability. And in stage 6, all of them break at once. What's stage 6? It's the final stage of a debt supercycle. Stage 1 is easy credit. Stage 2 is asset inflation. Stage 3 is euphoria. Stage 4 is the first cracks. Stage 5 is denial. And stage 6 is the liquidity crisis. The moment when everyone needs cash and nobody has it. That's when you find out what's really an asset and what's just expensive overhead. Let's go back to 2006, the peak of the housing bubble. Everyone believed prices would never fall. Everyone had a story about their neighbor who flipped a house and made $100,000 in 6 months. Everyone thought they were a real estate genius. The median home price in America hit $220,000, up 100% in 6 years, 100%. And people were taking out loans they couldn't afford because you can always refinance and prices only go up. Banks were giving mortgages to people with no income verification, no down payment, adjustable rates that would explode in 2 years. And nobody cared because the house would be worth more by then. You could just sell and walk away with profit. That was the theory. Here's what actually happened. In 2007, the adjustable rates reset. People who were paying $1,200 a month suddenly owed $2,800. They couldn't pay. They couldn't refinance because their credit was shot. And they couldn't sell because there were no buyers. Foreclosures started small. Then they avalanched. By 2008, banks were drowning in properties they couldn't sell. Prices collapsed. The median home price fell to $170,000, a $50,000 loss. 40% of homeowners were underwater. They owed more than the house was worth. And here's the part nobody talks about. The people who lost the most weren't the speculators. They were the families who bought at the peak because they believed the American dream. They believed a house was always a good investment. They believed they were building wealth. They were building debt. Now let's look at the pattern, because 2008 wasn't unique. It's happened before. It'll happen again. Spain, 2008 to 2013. Real estate prices fell 60%. 60? Entire apartment complexes in Madrid sat empty. Banks repossessed over 400,000 homes. Young professionals who bought in 2006 were still underwater in 2020. 14 years of negative equity. Who survived? Renters? People with cash? People who didn't tie their net worth to an illiquid asset that required constant cash flow to maintain. Ireland, same period. Property prices dropped 50%. The Irish government bailed out the banks, but not the homeowners. Families lost everything. Not because they were irresponsible, because they bought into the system at the wrong time. Greece, 2010 to 2015. Real estate values collapsed 70%. 70. Property taxes tripled while incomes were cut in half. People who owned homes free and clear were forced to sell because they couldn't pay the annual taxes. They lost their family homes. Homes that had been in their families for generations. The pattern is clear. In a liquidity crisis, real estate becomes a cash drain. Property taxes don't stop. Maintenance doesn't stop. Insurance doesn't stop. But income does. Jobs disappear. Savings evaporate. And the house you thought was your security becomes the chain that keeps you from adapting. Here's the brutal truth about 2008 that nobody wants to admit. The people who thrived weren't the ones who held on to their homes. They were the ones who sold early or never bought at all. I know a guy named Marcus, investment banker in New York. In 2005, he sold his Brooklyn brownstone, made $400,000 profit. His friends called him an idiot. Brooklyn real estate always goes up. You'll never be able to buy back in? Marcus rented a smaller place, took the $400,000 and put it in treasury bonds. Boring. Safe. Everyone mocked him. 2 years later, his brownstone was worth half what he sold it for. His friends were underwater on their mortgages. Their bonuses disappeared. Their jobs disappeared. They were stuck. They couldn't move. They couldn't downsize. They couldn't adapt. Marcus, he bought 3 properties in 2009, paid cash, rented them out, sold them in 2019 for triple what he paid. He made over $2 million, not because he was smarter, because he understood liquidity. When everyone needs cash, cash is king. When everyone is trying to sell, buying is power. But you can't buy if you're trapped in a mortgage you can't escape. Now let's talk about why this matters right now. Why we're about to see 2008 Part 2, and why it's going to be worse. The average American home price today is $420,000. $420,000. That's double the 2006 peak adjusted for inflation. Double. And mortgage rates went from 3% to 7% in 2 years. That means the monthly payment on a median home went from $1,500 to $3,000 in 2 years. Who can afford that? Not the average American. Median household income is $75,000. That means the median home costs 5.6 times the median income. In 2000, it was 3.2 times. In 1980, it was 2.8 times. The math doesn't work. It never did. It only worked because interest rates were artificially suppressed for 15 years. And now that rates are normalizing, the illusion is breaking. But here's what's different from 2008. Back then, people had savings, they had equity, they had cushions. Today, the average American has $400 in emergency savings. $400. One car repair wipes that out. Credit card debt is at an all-time high, $1.2 trillion. Student loan payments just restarted. Car loan defaults are spiking. And the jobs market is weakening. Tech layoffs, finance layoffs, retail closing stores. We're not in stage 4 anymore. We're not even in stage 5. We're entering stage 6, the liquidity crisis. And when it hits, real estate becomes a trap. Now let me be specific about what happens. Stage 6 has 3 phases, and in every phase, homeowners suffer while liquid investors win. Phase 1 is the squeeze. This is where we are now. Prices stay high because nobody can afford to sell at a loss. Inventory is low because people are locked into 3% mortgages and refuse to buy a new house at 7%. The market freezes. During the squeeze, you can't sell unless you take a massive loss. You can't refinance because rates are too high. And you can't move because you're trapped. Your job might disappear, your city might decline, your life might need to change. But you can't adapt because the house owns you. Phase 2 is the crack. This is when the first wave of forced sellers hits. Layoffs accelerate. Arm resets happen. Property taxes increase because cities are desperate for revenue. Maintenance costs spike. Insurance premiums explode. In Florida, homeowners, insurance has tripled in 3 years. Tripled. One by one, people break. They can't make the payments anymore. They list the house. They take the loss. And every sale sets a new comparable. Every comp drops the value of every other house in the neighborhood. The spiral begins. Phase 3 is the cascade. This is 2009. This is when prices fall 30, 40, 50%. This is when banks repossess, when vultures with cash sweep in and buy entire neighborhoods for pennies on the dollar. This is when homeowners realize they've been paying a mortgage on an asset that's now worth less than the debt. And here's the kicker. Even if you want to walk away, you can't. Because in most states, mortgage debt isn't dischargeable. The bank can come after your wages, your savings, your future income. You're trapped even if you leave. That's not an asset. That's indentured servitude. Now, here's the question you're asking. Well, what about all the people who say real estate is the best hedge against inflation? What about the people who say you should own tangible assets when the dollar collapses? They're half right. And the half they're wrong about will destroy you. Yes, real estate is tangible. Yes, it can hedge against currency debasement if you own it free and clear. But most people don't own it free and clear. They own a leveraged position in an illiquid market with ongoing cash requirements. In a true inflation crisis, property taxes explode. Maintenance costs explode. Insurance explodes. If your income doesn't keep pace with inflation, which it won't unless you're in the top 10%, then the house becomes a drain you can't escape. And here's what nobody tells you. In a severe crisis, governments confiscate. They don't call it confiscation. They call it emergency taxation, special assessments, wealth taxes. But the result is the same. If you own a house and can't pay the new taxes, they take it, and you have no recourse. Happened in Greece, happened in Cyprus, happened in Argentina. It'll happen here if things get bad enough. Real estate isn't a hedge, it's a target. Let's talk about who wins when real estate collapses, because there are always winners. And understanding who they are tells you what you should be doing. The winners are the ones with liquidity, cash, treasury bonds, assets that can be converted to cash instantly. When everyone is desperate to sell, they buy. When prices are at the bottom, they acquire entire portfolios. Blackstone bought 60,000 homes after 2008. 60,000. They paid an average of $150,000 per house. Today, those homes are worth $400,000 each. That's a $15 billion profit. $15 billion. But Blackstone didn't get that opportunity by being a homeowner. They got it by being liquid, by having cash when everyone else was trapped in mortgages. The same thing happened in Spain. American hedge funds bought entire apartment buildings in Madrid for 30 cents on the dollar, rented them out, sold them 5 years later for triple. The Spanish families who bought in 2006 lost everything. The American funds made billions. The same thing will happen this time. And if you're locked into a house you can't sell, you won't be on the winning side. Here's the part that hurts. I know what you're thinking. But I need a place to live. Renting is throwing money away. I'm building equity. Let me break that down. Renting isn't throwing money away if it gives you flexibility. Equity isn't wealth if you can't access it without selling. You can't sell in a crash without taking a loss. Let me give you the numbers. Let's say you buy a $400,000 house with 20% down. That's $80,000. Your mortgage is $320,000 at 7%. Your monthly payment is $2,100, plus property tax, plus insurance, plus maintenance. Let's call it $3,000 all in. If you rented an equivalent house, you'd pay maybe $2,500 a month. You save $500. Over 10 years, that's $60,000. Plus, you keep the $80,000 you didn't use for a down payment. That's $140,000 in liquid capital. Now, let's say the market crashes 30%. Your $400,000 house is now worth $280,000. You still owe $300,000. You're underwater by $20,000. Plus, you spent $360,000 in payments over 10 years. That's $380,000 total cost for an asset worth $280,000. The renter? He spent $300,000 in rent, but he has $140,000 in liquid savings. Net cost is $160,000, and he's not underwater. He's not trapped. He can move. He can adapt. He can buy when the market bottoms. Who's richer? The math is brutal, but it's real. Now let me tell you what you should be doing instead. Not what the real estate agents want you to do, not what the mortgage brokers want you to do, what the people who survived 2008 did, what the people who survived every liquidity crisis in history did. First, build liquidity, cash and savings, treasury bonds, money market funds, assets you can access in 24 hours, not tied up in a house you can't sell. How much? Enough to live for 12 months without income, minimum. If that sounds impossible, that's a sign you can't afford the house you're thinking of buying. Second, stay flexible. Rent if you can. If you already own, consider selling before the crash. Yes, you might miss out on future gains if I'm wrong, but if I'm right, you avoid catastrophic losses. Risk management isn't about maximizing upside. It's about surviving downside. Third, wait for blood in the streets. If you want to own real estate, wait for the cascade. Wait for phase 3. Wait until prices have fallen 50% and everyone is terrified. That's when you buy, with cash, at a discount. And you rent it out for positive cash flow while you wait for the recovery. That's how generational wealth is built. Not by buying at the peak because everyone else is. By buying at the bottom because everyone else is too scared. Here's a real example. 2009, Las Vegas. A guy named Tom worked in construction. He lost his job in 2008, but he had done something smart in 2005. He sold his house, took the equity, lived lean, saved everything. In 2009, he had $120,000 in cash. Houses that sold for $400,000 in 2006 were going for $90,000. 90. He bought 3, paid cash, no mortgage, no risk. He rented them out for $1,200 a month each. That's $3,600 in monthly income. Positive cash flow from day one. By 2015, those houses were worth $200,000 each. He sold 2, kept 1, walked away with $500,000 in profit. Tom didn't have a finance degree. He didn't have inside information. He had liquidity, and he had patience. That's it. Compare that to his neighbor who bought in 2006. Lost the house in foreclosure in 2009. Took 7 years to rebuild his credit. Missed the entire recovery. Still renting today. Same neighborhood, same economy. Opposite decisions, opposite outcomes. Now the question you're really asking, what if you're wrong? What if real estate keeps going up? What if I miss out? Here's my answer. If I'm wrong and you stayed liquid, what did you lose? You paid rent instead of a mortgage. You kept your flexibility. You avoided debt. You built savings. You didn't get rich from real estate appreciation. But you didn't get destroyed either. Now flip it. If I'm right and you bought a house, what did you lose? Your down payment, your equity, your flexibility, your ability to adapt, potentially your credit, potentially your financial future. You're trapped in an underwater asset with no way out. That's asymmetric risk. Small downside if I'm wrong. Catastrophic downside if I'm right. That's the logic of survivors. That's the logic of people who make it through crashes and come out wealthier. Let me tell you the truth the real estate industry will never admit. Homeownership in America is a controlled demolition of the middle class. It's a system designed to trap you in debt and keep you from building real wealth. Think about it. You spend 30 years paying off a mortgage. 30 years. By the time you own the house, free and clear, you've paid double the purchase price in interest. Double. And in that 30 years, you couldn't move for a better job. You couldn't take risks. You couldn't invest in opportunities. Because you were chained to a house. Meanwhile, the bank made a fortune. The government collected property taxes every year. The insurance company got paid. Everyone extracted wealth from you. And you got an illiquid asset that you can't access without selling. That's not wealth building. That's wealth extraction. And it only works when the system is stable. When the system breaks, the house doesn't save you. It drowns you. Here's what the next 2 years look like. Commercial real estate is already collapsing. Office buildings in San Francisco are selling for 60% less than 2019. 60%? Banks are sitting on billions in unrealized losses. They can't sell without taking the hit. So they're pretending everything is fine. But it's not fine. Regional banks are struggling. Office vacancy rates are at record highs. The Fed is trapped between inflation and recession. They can't cut rates without reigniting inflation. They can't raise rates without breaking the banks. Something has to give. And when it gives, residential real estate follows. Because it always does. The lag is 6 to 18 months. Commercial crashes first, then residential. It happened in 2008. It happened in the S&L crisis. It'll happen again. And when it happens, everyone who bought in the last 3 years will be underwater. Everyone who's sitting on a 7% mortgage will be trapped. And everyone who thought they were building wealth will realize they built a trap. You want to know the sickest part? The media is still telling you to buy. CNBC has segments about hot housing markets. Real estate agents are posting on Instagram about interest rates coming down soon. Mortgage brokers are offering special programs to get you into a house with 5% down. They're all lying. Not because they're evil, because they're incentivized. Real estate agents get paid when you buy. Mortgage brokers get paid when you borrow. The media gets ad revenue from real estate companies. Nobody makes money when you stay liquid and wait, but you don't owe them anything. You owe yourself the truth. And the truth is that buying a house in stage 6 is financial suicide for most people. Here's your action plan. What you do in the next 90 days determines your next 10 years. First, if you're thinking about buying, don't. Not yet. Wait. Build liquidity. Watch the market. If prices start falling, wait longer. If they keep rising, you avoided a trap. Either way, you win. Second, if you already own and you're barely making the payments, sell now. Take the equity. Rent. Rebuild your cash position. It's not too late, but it will be in 6 months. Third, if you own free and clear or you're cash flow positive, you're fine. Hold. Don't panic sell, but don't buy more. Don't take on debt. Stay defensive. Fourth, if you're underwater, this is harder. You might be stuck. But start preparing now. Cut expenses, build savings, get a side income. Because if the market crashes further, you need options, and options require cash. Here's the bottom line. The American dream of homeownership was never about building wealth. It was about creating a stable, tax-paying, debt-burdened middle class that couldn't rebel because they had too much to lose. That dream is dying. Trying to hold on to it will take you down with it. The survivors of 2008 weren't the ones who believed the system would save them. They were the ones who saw the trap and walked away before it closed. The survivors of the next crash won't be any different. One last thing. I know this is uncomfortable. I know it challenges everything you've been taught. But ask yourself this question. Who benefits from you believing real estate always goes up? Who benefits from you taking on debt? Who benefits from you being trapped? It's not you. And once you realize that, everything changes. The asset that saved people in every liquidity crisis wasn't the house. It was the absence of the house. It was the freedom to move, to adapt, to buy when everyone else was forced to sell. That's the real American dream, not ownership, freedom. And freedom requires liquidity. The trap is closing. You can see it if you look. Rising rates, falling affordability, increasing defaults, commercial real estate collapsing, banks wobbling, the Fed out of options. This is stage 6. And in stage 6, the house doesn't save you. It buries you. So here's the choice. Believe the lie and buy into the trap. Or accept the truth and stay free. I can't make the choice for you, but I can tell you what history shows. The people who stayed liquid survived. The people who stayed trapped didn't, and this time won't be different. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, join the community of people who see what's coming. Because the next videos will show you exactly how to build the fortress that survives the storm, how to structure your finances for a deflationary crash, how to identify the bottom when it comes, how to buy real estate the right way when blood is in the streets, how to protect everything you've built from a system designed to take it. This isn't theory. This is the survival manual. And the people who read it first get the advantage. See you in the next one. And remember, the trap is optional, but only if you see it before it closes.